Deus Ex: Human Revolution is an action role-playing game developed by Eidos Montreal and published by Square Enix. The gameplay combines first-person shooter with stealth and role-playing elements, and features exploration and combat in environments connected to multiple city-based hubs. In addition to this, the player is also able to gain experience and customize the player character with a range of abilities as well as their weapons. My first reaction upon finishing this game was to wonder what the ending would have been like with a different approach through the game, and along with despairing over that this game experience now was over, and because of this, it had me replaying the game many times over. So for this assignment, I'd like to analyze one of my favorite games, Deus Ex: Human Revolution. Set in year 2027 and a time of great innovation, the story world is a cyberpunk future filled with conspiracy theories, secret organizations and megacorporations. The development of biotechnology and cybernetics have led to augmentations, artificial limbs and organs capable of greatly enhancing the human body's performance. The downside to the augmentations is that an immunosuppressive drug called neuroposin is needed in order to stop the human body from rejecting the augmentations. This new technology also creates a divide in society between humans who have augmentations and can afford them, and humans who either morally oppose the technology, can't afford them, or whose bodies actively rejects them. This divide in society is present throughout the entirety of the game, and the player will be put in many situations where the player must make ethical and moral choices. The game takes the player through several game hubs, from the streets of Detroit to a neon-lit lower-class Shanghai in China, to a secret Illuminati lab in Singapore. The game world is populated by augmented and non-augmented humans, by robots, billionaires, beggars, street thugs and cops. Some of the more central characters will be the player himself, Adam Jensen, your partner Frank Pritchard, and David Sarif, head of Sarif Industries, a super mega corporation, along with the Black Ops mercenaries who kills you in the beginning of the game. Most non-essential characters in this game are fairly emotionless, and the emotions of the player himself, Adam Jensen, is often left to the player to decide. However, there are characters that get a rise out of him, especially Frank Pritchard.
About time. What happened? You get stuck in an air duct on the way over?
Yeah, nice to see you too, Francis.
Speaking of emotions, the game starts out by brutally killing many characters you just saw minutes ago, and makes you watch as the main character himself gets torn to shreds and killed, while watching his old love gets beat up and presumably killed in front of him. Through this, I think the game tries to elicit some emotion and thoughts of revenge into the player, as well as setting up for the main plot points in the game. Which brings me to my next point. Almost right after this incident, the player is quickly put in a position where it must choose lethal or non-lethal. So right after the beginning, the game asks you if you would like the means to kill enemies or simply incapacitate them. Will you try to avoid bloodshed, or will you kill your way through this situation? Lethal versus non-lethal choices will be presented to the player throughout the game, and will also change how the game world sees you, and how the ending might play out. For every enemy you encounter, you are presented with several choices on how to deal with it. Kill the enemy, put the enemy to sleep, or simply just try to avoid it overall. Another example of emotions elicited in the player comes towards the end of the game, where the player must do nothing more than decide the future of augmentations for humanity. And the player must recount the happenings through the game and how they feel about it, and choose. When it comes to micronarrative in this game, it does so in several ways. For example, you can catch two guards chatting about you, or have them talk about what is happening in the game from their point of view, or you can find two enemies talking about what they think about the current situation. And you can also find small digital diaries in drawers, on character bodies, or simply left around. You're also able to access computers and check the emails of the people in this game world, where you can read about their opinions, their daily life and struggles, or find small hints on how to progress in the game. Lastly, there is the radios. Radios are commonly found in apartments and such throughout the game, and the radio host will talk about the current happenings in the game based on how far the player has progressed. The radio host represents the common folk's voice. In the exposition, the player is introduced to many central characters early on, as the player follows his ex, Megan Reed, through Sarif Industries. The player is also introduced to the game world at this stage. The first mission attempted by a player also ends with an augmented hacker killing himself, causing several questions that needs answers. The player finds the Black Ops mercenaries who attacked him and Sarif Industries in the beginning, and confronts and kills one of them, Barrett. Before Barrett dies, he directs the player to a newly built Hengsha megacity in China, before killing himself with a grenade, attempting to take the player with him. This gives the player a new lead, finding the people behind the attack on Sarif Industries and uncovering a plot which starts to thicken. The player follows the clues found in Act 1. His search takes him through Shanghai, then Montreal in a large news corporation building where he finds out that the world's most popular news anchor actually was a sophisticated AI program all along, and is redirected right back to the beginning in Detroit, namely his boss David Sarif. The player character starts to realize he has stumbled upon something much larger, namely that it is indeed the Illuminati who is behind everything, pulling strings behind the scenes. The player character thinks about who to trust and seeks help from other characters, realizing he needs all the help he can get to find the missing scientists, and thus closer to uncovering what the Illuminati's goal actually is. The player finds information and trustworthy characters, kills one more Black Ops mercenary and presses on. All this takes the player back to China. He must now request help from the Triad by favors for favors. He is then sent off to Singapore, where the final act will begin and the plot intensifies. The mercenary group was ordered to attack Sarif Industries in the beginning by a rivaling megacorporation. The leader of this megacorporation, in turn, answers to the Illuminati. The player character's old boss David Sarif was aware of this. The player, now in a secret base in Singapore, is reunited with his ex-girlfriend and a missing scientist. However, things have not been what they have seemed. Many augmented which have been seeking help in clinics have actually been inserted with a mind control chip. This could also go for the player, depending on the choices made by the player. The story climaxes as the player finds the missing scientists, only to witness a member of the Illuminati trigger a switch which causes all augmented people with the chip to go into a killing frenzy, as a crowd of augmented and non-augmented people are gathered in an installation in the middle of the ocean. The player also learns the Illuminati's true motive, a switch to control all augmented people in the entire world. The player must make his way through a blood-crazed augmented people, terrified non-augmented people, his boss David Sarif, and many other characters of the cast. The player confronts a member of the Illuminati, right as she connects herself to a machine which runs on live humans as batteries. The player wins and puts all the human drones out of their misery and watches as the Illuminati member dies. The suspense slowly arcs down as the player must reflect upon the game journey and make a final choice for the future for humanity and augmentation. To summarize, Deus Ex Human Revolution is a fantastic game. Midway through the game the story do get a little convoluted. It might be a little hard to keep track of it, but it does reel itself in at the end, where every question is concluded and answered. The game plays a lot on the player emotions and moral compass, of what the player thinks is right and wrong. Though the game do follow a distinct path throughout, the choices made by the player do alter the game world, the mood and the ending. In short, the story itself. Also, if one sits through the credits, there's a hidden cutscene